Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Rock Topic Podcast once again. I'm here with, guess who?
You already know. It's Zane. What's going
Indeed.
on, guys?
Indeed. And by the picture on screen, you guys can obviously tell that today we are talking about Rush again. No, I'm kidding. It's Jimi Hendrix.
What?
I didn't tell.
I was like,
I
I
didn't
was like,
inform Zane about that bit. I just wanted to see
yeah,
what he said.
I was gonna have to do like a little Morse code help me thing here. I was like, I didn't study for this one.
No. Jimi Hendrix is the topic today. That bit won't make a lot of sense to Zane because he can't see the image that's going up as our background for this podcast. But
But when I check it out after, I'll see it.
alrighty, so Zane, why did we pick Jimi Hendrix?
Well, why not? It's Jimi Hendrix. Like, do you need any other reason besides the fact that he makes fantastic music?
Indeed. All right. I guess let's start with some obvious like icebreakers as far as talking about Jimi Hendrix. What do you think is probably your favorite song? I'd say that's a good place to start. What's your favorite Jimi Hendrix song if you had to pick one? Something for the audience
Ooh,
to
if I
listen to at
had
home.
to, okay. Then I mentioned this to you a bit ago, but definitely Red House. Just something about that song, his vocals, the way it sounds, the little bluesy solos he embellishes the song with, just throughout the entire thing. The
Cool.
lyrics are pretty hilarious too. If you decide to look at the lyrics, it is funny song.
Yeah, I wish I had a better knowledge of the Hendrix discography, but I will say the song for me has my that has my attention, I'd say, and has my like biggest impact on my guitar playing is Voodoo Child, just because of
Okay.
the riff is so simple and addictive, and you can make it basically whatever. It's just in the attitude he has when he plays it. The use of the wah at the beginning is so iconic. Just the original. That
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I guess I
it's
should
you can
preface what I
immediately
said about.
recognize it.
Yeah, I guess I should preface what I meant about Red House to backpack off your point with Voodoo Child. If I had to say there was one like quintessential Jimi Hendrix song, it's probably Voodoo Child.
Interesting.
Like above all else, if you haven't listened to Jimmy, Voodoo Child is probably like a must listen. That and like obviously Purple Haze,
Yeah,
but
I was gonna
I
say
doubt anyone
Purple
who's
Haze
gonna
has to
watch
be up
this.
there.
I doubt
I
anyone
really
who's
like Hey Joe.
watching this. That's a great one.
Here, let me
That is
grab
a
my
phenomenal.
my record here.
So I'm gonna go look at. You tell me what is on the greatest hits for Jimi Hendrix, and I will go ahead and compare that to the very first album he ever made, Are You Experienced? Which, once again, guys, Are You Experienced? Like that whole album for Jimi Hendrix. If you need a good listen, if you've never listened to him, just go to Are You Experienced if you have, even just on YouTube, if you don't want to pay for a streaming service, just find a playlist of it, listen to Foxy Lady all the way down to Are You Experienced? You'll be in love. Guaranteed.
Alrighty. So I am at this album or this like best of record I have is called Experience Hendrix, the best of Jimi Hendrix, and it's a vinyl record um, that I got, and I just remember seeing it on the shelf, and I was like, I need that. So I'm gonna tell you this is side A of the first record, and we have Purple Haze for obvious reasons, Fire,
Hmm.
The Wind
Okay.
Cries Mary, Hey Joe,
All right.
and All Along the
Okay.
Watchtower.
Okay. Now, all besides All Along the Watchtower, all of those are on Are You Experienced?
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah, his first album.
That's so crazy. Now I'll flip over to well, let's flip over to side B here. We have Stone Free,
Okay.
Crosstown Traffic, Manic
Oh,
Depression,
there it is.
Little
Okay.
Wing, If Six Was Nine.
Okay, so only one of those, which is manic depression, that um
That
was
first
on
record.
that one. But for his albums, yeah, there was a few that you were talking about, which would be his what is it called? Is it called Castles Made of Sand?
Castles
Is
Made
that
of
that album?
Sand, I think. Here, I'm also gonna pull up uh, Jimmy Jimi Hendrix discography here on Spotify so I can be able to reference
Oh
that.
no. Oh, my bad. No, that's not. No, it's Access. That is. Hello?
Hello?
Oh, there we go. My bad.
Oh,
My
it
whole thing
dropped
messed
out
up.
for a split
But
second
Axis
there.
Bold Love.
Okay.
Axis Bold Love is the album that I was referencing. That's the one that has a six was nine, and which is a fantastic song.
Yeah, I'm gonna look through the albums here. Yep, Are You Experienced? I will say what sticks out to me when I look at Jimi Hendrix's discography here, um, as far as an album cover goes, the one that sticks out to me, I would say the most. I feel like a lot of people would say, "Are You Experienced?" But honestly, I have just like there's something so like iconic about the Electric Ladyland cover.
Ladyland? Yeah. No, that one I have to agree with you on that. I just think that's probably the album that most people would be that would be recognizable to most people if they didn't know who Jimi Hendrix was.
Yeah. Well, there's something too. Like, I guess I never realized how unbelievably long that first album actually is. This is 17 tracks. That's crazy.
Hmm.
I mean, I had no idea. That's a long
And
record.
you have to remember Jimi Hendrix got popular, like big, I believe 1964. Don't quote me on that. So like he died in 1970. He had less than a decade and he made all these songs and records. Like it's not like that's what people don't ever talk about when they talk about Jimi Hendrix. It's not like he was a lifelong musician. Well, he was, but he wasn't making music
It was a
lifelong
it
like
was
that.
a it was a short life. A short lifelong but lifelong
Yeah,
nonetheless.
yeah, like he didn't have all the time as like you see all these other bands that go through like many changes or years to get to where they were. Jimi Hendrix was playing for a long time, but in
Not
terms of all his own solo music, it only 4 or 5 years of it.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see what artists. I mean, obviously, Jimmy's lack of sticking around was not due to his own fault, to the best of my knowledge. Um, that was, kind of a tragedy, many would say. Um, and I feel like you have a lot of artists who have the ability to create this long-standing and long-lasting career and end up throwing it away themselves.
Yeah,
And then you get other bands who
whether it's
stick
like a
around for like a little too long. Just hard to find that
yeah,
perfect. Or what's what a perfect lyric to insert here is from Neil Young's My Hey Hey, is that it's better to burn out than it is to rust.
very true. And that's what and like you can see with a lot of big names like bands like Guns N' Roses. They they were on cloud nine for so long, and then there was a few like fighting within the band, and they all didn't get along when it came to the last album, which is probably one of their best albums. Um, the one with Knocking on Heaven's Door, and then they just split up after, which like stinks. But it's like so many bands like that just like waste their talents on fighting or drug use, and
Yeah. I guess the one
yeah,
good thing I will say about Guns N' Roses and their weird stint of whatever, just a quick deviation from Hendrix. There's something to be said, I think, about um, Bumblefoot as a guitar player, and he is definitely not who you think of when you think of Guns N' Roses. You think of Slash, but after Slash left, and when they were taking whatever it took like a whole decade to get that Chinese Democracy record out for Guns N' Roses toward the end of
Oh,
their stint. But that, I mean, Bumblefoot's guitar playing is unbelievable.
yeah, that's what I feel like we're deviating, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, like that's what I hate about music, like purists who are like, "Oh, this new Guns N' Roses isn't the real band." It's like, yeah, it is. It's like just because like not all original members doesn't mean it's not that band.
Yeah.
That's what I hate when it comes to music people.
Yeah. Well, okay, here's something for you to bring that back to Hendrix. Where is the line drawn? Because we have also, okay, like I'm going to take that claim you've made, right? Where you say, oh, just because it's not the original members doesn't mean it's not the same band. So, okay, what if Van Halen, after Eddie passed away now, they tried to just get another guitar player, whether it's Wolfgang or whether it's somebody else? Is it still Van Halen?
I think yes, like that's how I felt with the Doors, because
Hmm.
when Jim Morrison died, everyone was like, "Oh, well, you can't have the Doors without Jim Morrison," and it's like, well, all the other members of the band are still there, like
So
the
you're
guitar
telling me
player, the
that
drummer.
if like you would feel, I guess you wouldn't have to feel the same way, but you would you would say that an album produced by the other members of the Jimi Hendrix experience, after Jimi Hendrix passed away, if they would have put out another album, you would have counted that as another album by
Well, of
that
course,
band.
uh,
Where does that line get
of
drawn?
course not. No, because no, of course not, because that's Jimi Hendrix's title band though. Like
Well,
it's
Van
Jimi
Halen is
Hendrix.
Eddie's title band.
Yeah, but Alex is also in the band, and he's a Van Halen. And if they had Wolfgang, which would be Eddie's son, it's still like
Mm,
they're keeping the Van Halen in
I
Van Halen.
suppose, but is it the name that makes the music, or you know what I mean? It's a weird.
Well,
It's all about how you feel. I think it's a very strange idea and topic when it comes to that.
well, yeah,
But
but like with Motley Crue, when Vince left the band or got voluntold to get out, um, they had John Corabi and they were still Motley Crue, even though people didn't like them. they were they, they were still Motley Crue.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, they had John Corabi. Just because nobody liked him doesn't mean they were who they were. That's funny. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah, they still made they. I mean, if anything, not that this is like a knockdown for Vince Neil, but the self-titled Motley Crue album was released with John Corabi, not Vince Neil.
It's
So
amazing
the
how we can turn a conversation from anywhere into a conversation about Motley Crue. I think every
hey,
single podcast we've done, barring the fact that we did one about Motley Crue, I think every podcast we've led back to Motley in some anecdotal story or something. Goodness. I would
that's not what I'm
say.
trying to say. Oh man,
Okay. So, okay, let's man, like Jimi Hendrix is just such a topic, and I'd say one
I
thing that
know.
I do want to bring up for Hendrix, that I feel like would be, you guys can see it on screen right now. Zane cannot, but look in the bottom left corner of that screen. Those two amps you're seeing side by side are what is known as the Marshall Plexi. And Zane, I don't know if you're too familiar with the whole Plexi craze and how that's literally like one of the most sought after, guitar amps of all time is that classic 60s Marshall plexiglass amp, just because it had that sound. And Jimi Hendrix was probably, I'd say, the main force in popularizing it, just because he had such a tone. And now granted, he also had like the fuzz thing going on with like the fuzz face and all that kind of stuff thrown in there, that I mean his tone was so out there. unlike a lot
Especially if
of
you compare
any
it,
other things.
especially if you compare it to the time period too,
Exactly.
like when it came out. Not like obviously not today, because today you have all these like metal bands doing like completely crazy effects on their guitar.
But
But
even
back
that,
then,
like, this is still different from that. Like, I could hear this tone anywhere and know, oh yeah, that's Jimi Hendrix. You know what I mean? Just by the
yeah,
tone.
I,
I mean, not
yeah,
even
that's
the
the thing. I
playing.
don't think anyone, as close as people try, I don't think anyone could recreate Jimi Hendrix's tone. It was all in his brain. I don't
Well,
think
yeah.
anyone's ever
To
getting
be
that kind of
fair,
knowledge.
to a vast extent, and in my opinion, I would say the further down you turn the gain knob, tone is in the fingers. I mean, unless you're really distorted to like beyond belief, your tone is in the fingers of the player, and that's
Well,
everything.
sure,
Every little thing
yeah,
comes
but
down to that when you're
y-
not in
yeah,
that
but
crazy
guitar
high gain
players,
scenario.
I 100% agree. But guitar players don't spend like thousands of dollars on new fingers, you know. So gear obviously plays some. They,
I
they
love how
play
literally
some
you
effect
take
at
that. Like,
least.
if I could just have Jimmy's fingers. That's so gross.
If I could just put a few $100 in the old pointer, I might be able to.
I could
I
nail
might be
this
able to get a
vibrato.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, instead we lie to ourselves about good, expensive gear making us sound good. Oh, man. That's funny. Yeah,
But
I don't know. I will
but what I
say,
loved.
because of Jimi Hendrix, that Marshall Plexi tone that's so sought after. Um, I mean, I want one, I mean, they're expensive as all can be, and but the other thing too is that uh, Marshall they've actually remade the Plexi in a studio series, and what the studio series basically refers to is the fact that it has a lot of more like modern conveniences built in for recording and that sort of thing. And using cab IRs, load box, all that stuff. That's a bit over the scope, technicality wise, of the podcast, I'd say. But it's cool to see that they're kind of bringing back some old classics. But what I would love to see, and what I really wish I had the money to do, would be to shoot out the Marshall Studio Plexi uh, against the like an original '60s Marshall Plexi.
Oh yeah,
Now that would
I
be
always love those. I always love those kind of comparisons, like old reissues of like of guitars or gear, just comparing them with like the more modern.
well. If you want to support the show and make that happen one day, head on over to patreon.com/riffjaw.
You got to do it, you know. You
Oh
have
my
to add a little bit
gosh.
of self promotion in there.
I mean, come on, you gotta. Hey, honestly though, if people want to see that shootout happen, then go support me on Patreon and leave it in the comments below. Oh man, if I could do that video one day,
Now
that'd
you're
be
gonna get someone.
crazy.
Now
Uh,
you're gonna get someone who like donates $10 and says, "Hey, where's the video you said in this podcast?"
yeah, if you want
Where?
to help, if you want to help, I can't
But what I loved is
can't wait.
that you said that we always bring up Motley Crue or whatever, but in this particular instance, we brought up a few bands,
Yes,
and that's just what Jimi Hendrix does, though. I think like you cannot talk about Jimi Hendrix without like acknowledging his role in making the guitar as a staple in music as a
true.
whole.
He was probably the first like household name guitar hero. What wasn't he? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure, one
Maybe,
hundred percent.
maybe. I guess I'm not totally sure on my timeline, but the I guess the Who. When was the Who around?
The Who, they
Yeah,
were
when were they prevalent?
I think they were I think they were rocking it out in the 60s.
Yeah, I know that for sure. Um,
Yeah, they were formed in 1964.
64. Yeah, because like Pete Townsend, was probably another one that was close, but he still obviously wasn't Hendrix big, but
Yeah.
he was definitely recognizable. Um, Hmm. Yeah, I would probably say that it'd be safest to say that Jimi Hendrix was the first household guitar legend name.
Well, I think Jimi Hendrix himself like opened the door to like what people realized they could do with the instrument,
Mm-hmm.
and the gear that comes along with it. I think no one really expected the guitar to sound as it did, or the fact
No.
that you can even
Well,
create those, like
goodness.
with his
National anthem is what I think of. That's one
or
of
or
them.
or
Okay.
that or Machine Gun. I think
Oh
his
yeah.
his um his instrumental Machine Gun about the war. That one too. Like no one even knew you could make a guitar sound that way.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
he
feel like the other
definitely.
thing he opened up, this is kind of a side note, all things considered, but compared to talking about the vast things he did for the instrument. But I will say that when it comes to like, doing unique things with the guitar, not only did he use like the fuzz pedal and bring that to like, bring the concept of fuzz to rock music, but what he also did that I thought was super interesting is like, the classic thing where he'd play the guitar with his teeth, um, and
Oh, yeah.
that kind of thing opened up the door, I feel like, in a way, for things like, Van Halen, using the drill on his guitar, and around a similar time period in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, with Led Zeppelin, using the violin bow on the guitar, Jimmy Page.
Or
Like all those kind of unique, what you'd call signature moves almost. Um,
or the roller coaster drum kit for Motley Crue.
oh man.
Once again, we had to insert Motley Crue in.
Gosh, if one day, hey guys, would I don't know anything about doing merch that isn't sponsored through Patreon, but I would love to do a shirt that says "Insert Motley." So if you guys would buy that shirt, leave it
that
in the
would be
comments below.
that would be I would be the first one to purchase one.
Leave it in the comments below, and I will gladly at least look into it, see if it's a
Insert
possibility.
Motley. Oh my god, that's a great running joke for the podcast. I love it.
I'm already loving it. Yeah, I mean, the other thing too, I guess I'd like to dive into what he used besides his, like, the Stratocaster. Like, did he use any other
Oh,
guitars?
like yes. Yeah, which Gibson decided to re-release a very obscure guitar that he used. He used a cream-colored uh, Gibson SG.
Did he?
Um, yes, and it's only in a
Oh
very
yeah.
few amount of videos.
Wow.
But he did use that. He loved it, and which what I don't get is that like now this is just me gonna rag on Gibson for a sec. No, like
That's
be
honestly,
warned.
Zane, if anything, the Motley thing will certainly become a trope, but man, if anything else is to become a running joke in this podcast, it's going to be ragging on Gibson.
But I just have to I have to vent this out about Gibson. So obviously Jimi Hendrix is a legendary guitarist. No one's gonna argue that. Gibson can't argue it, and no one can. But he's known for the Fender Stratocaster, right? And that's totally fair. He did have a Gibson SG that he played every now and then, but it's very obscure. If you ask the average Jimmy listener, even someone who loves him, they're not gonna really know that he played a Gibson SG every now and then.
No,
But they
especially looking at
released
some of
a
these other
hundred.
guitars. That's interesting. Like, let me
Yeah,
read the
but
pre-album guitars he used quick, unless you got something you want to finish first.
I'm gonna quickly get it out of the way. What gets me is that they did a reissue of his Gibson SG. They only made I think 150, or they said of him, but the pricing there $10,000.
Yep.
No one's gonna buy that. Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
not only is it not well known as a Jimi Hendrix guitar, but he's not known for the SG. He's known for the Strat. Like no one's gonna put $10,000 to get a guitar that no one. If you showed someone, like if I bought that guitar and I showed you without telling you, you wouldn't be like, "Oh, is that the Jimi Hendrix guitar?" Like you wouldn't know
Yeah,
that. So why
exactly.
would they price it at 10,000? No one's gonna.
Well,
I think they
okay.
should have mass produced it, chopped off that price point, and it would sell way better.
Yeah, well, for sure. Well, especially, I think of another stupid thing that Gibson did. Let's ride this roller coaster. Um, looking at, I mean, Gibson also re-released, or they released when they have Jimmy Page's signature like double neck SG. The thing's like $8,000, eight thousand five hundred
Yeah,
dollars, and it's like, I'm sorry,
yeah.
and like I know the name is part of it and all of that, but I mean, the materials to build that and the give, the materials required to build the guitar, and even if you want to talk about the coolness of the technology and whatever, it's not worth $8,000. It's
I
because
feel like
it's a custom shop. It's because it's got Gibson on the headstock, and it's because it's under the name of a famous guitar player. It's just one of those
yeah,
messy
I
things
feel
where.
like I feel like they do that often, and like they get away with it too, for being fair.
Well, that's
Because
why I bought my double neck from Harley Benton. I didn't want to support Gibson, charging that much. But anyway, back to the chronological list of the guitars he used. So, I, man, I usually don't go through and edit these podcasts, but I don't know, maybe I won't. But let me just say that some of the guitars he used are just crazy looking. This 57 Supro Ozark is like this, it's like white, and it has like one pickup in it. It just is. It looks really, really weird. It says, okay, it was his first electric guitar. He got it from his dad, who bought it in a shop in Seattle for $90. And then he used a Dan Electro
yeah,
at a point, like a tan, like dried, like animal hide color looking thing. Then he had an Ibanez Jet King, which kind of looks like kind of almost the same body shape as like a Fender J bass. It's got like white pickguard covering the whole body, and then an Epiphone Wilshire, which looks like a precursor almost to the SG. It's a double cutaway, two pickups. It looks like it's got P90s in it, and one of those long bridges that wraps around at the edge of the body. That just looks crazy. And now in the 60s here, or 1964 here, the 1960s Fender Duo Sonic, which is very similar looking to a Strat, just with a longer body. It was like a cream color. And then used a Fender Jazzmaster in 1964 as
wait,
well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. And P90s in it. Like, that's an interesting choice. And then he went back to the Duo Sonic Sunburst, and then another Jazzmaster in 66. And then finally, in 1966, we had the 1960s Fender Strat Carol.
There it is. But that's like going back to what you said about the why you bought your Harley Benton double neck instead
Mm-hmm.
of the Gibson because it's lower price. That's the same reason why I got that SG. If you were wondering,
Yeah.
because it looks similar enough to Jimi Hendrix that it's a comfortable homage, but it's not $10,000 for it.
Exactly. Exactly. So his first Strat, the 1960s Fender Strat, that's named Carol, and then in 1966 as well, Linda, which was another
Linda,
another literally the same type of guitar, a 1964 Fender Stratocaster.
or wasn't that one black, right?
No, the third one here
Because I
would be
know.
Darlington, would be another 1960s Fender Strat he used, was black. So
Oh
he
my
went through
God.
literally two of the same guitar that were in the same 4-year gap that looked identical.
No, no wonder why Fender has propped him up as a poster boy for the
Hmm.
Fender Strat.
Well, and then after the black Darlington one, he went back to that same 1960s Fender Strat again, same color and everything. And then from there,
Crazy.
he moves into more Stratocasters, but this time a 63 with a sunburst finish, and then the Astoria 65, and then some kind of mysterious 1960 something Fender Strat given to him by Frank Zappa with like gold plating on it. It looks
Ooh.
really cool. That's interesting. It says that like the history of the guitar is, however, far from established, and some even doubt its legitimacy, since just until recently there's been proof of Jimmy only ever burning 2 guitars in his life. That's interesting.
Oh wow.
I wonder if that goes on to talk about that he like burnt it. Huh. That's crazy looking though.
That's that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's insane. I just in general when it comes to um just when it comes to the history of guitars, like, and it's crazy how much you see these things costing too, when you start getting into these realms of just frankly insane, legend status. You really start to see just cool stories about guitars and cool, like, I don't know. I definitely like vintage guitars. I don't think I like vintage guitars enough to want to buy one at any point. That could change.
I think I think the vintage guitars look like the way they look
Hmm.
um are pretty bad. Like the age, like
Really?
like the age, like paint coming off of it, unless it's like natural vintage, not
Oh,
like
no, no, no. I'm
some
talking
like
about like actually buying like say a 1960s Strat, not like buying
oh
Fender
yeah, no no
recreating
no
like a
no that
vintage looking thing. I'd be
okay
interested to
then yes
see if
no
I
then I
could
agree.
go. You know what? Let's look it up right now. Let's see. Reverb. Let's go on Reverb and let's see what the actual going rate is for a 1960s Fender Strat. This is going to be a sickening price.
Oh, I didn't know that. Did Jimi Hendrix use a flying V?
What?
Oh, he did.
A Flying V?
Jimmy, yeah, he used a flying V.
I didn't know that.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Hmm.
there's a picture of him right there with the flying V.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, no, that's the. So I guess Gibson made that guitar too, but is the same $10,000 when they made 100, but they only made 150 of them. So they made the SG and the Flying V, Jimi Hendrix. So both now that doubly annoys the shit out of me because no, I didn't even know he used a Flying V until this podcast, and
Yeah,
I
I
am
suppose.
probably the biggest Jimi Hendrix fan that you know, and
Yeah,
I didn't even know he used a Flying V, and they're selling it for 10,000. Like, who's
that's
gonna buy a Flying V
ridiculous.
and be like, oh, guess what? This is 10,000 bucks, Jimi Hendrix guitar. Who the fuck is
Wow.
gonna know that?
So this is kind of cool. I found a listing here for a Fender 60s Strat. Oh, never mind, never mind. This is like a reissue. I was going to say a 60s reissue. I want to see if I can find. Here we go. Let's see what this one is.
How
This
much was
one,
it though? The reissue?
that was about 4 grand. But here, this one is.
Oh,
No, this is another like
that's a reissue.
reissue. I
Yikers!
don't like these reissues. I want to see if I can find an actual. I
I
suppose people wouldn't
I
want to sell a 60s Strat. That's the
yeah,
other
I was
thing.
gonna say if you have a 60s, you probably want to hold on to that puppy.
Yeah, 1960s Fender Strat for sale. Let's see what we can find. Ah, yeah. All right. That's more like what I'm thinking. That,
How
yeah,
much?
roughly $20,000 it looks like.
Ooh. Well,
1964 Sunburst Strat,
for that price, you can
21,000.
get two of the most. For that price, you can get two of the most obscure reissued Jimi Hendrix guitars from Gibson.
To be honest, I would seriously rather pay some dude $21,000 than paid Gibson $21,000 for 2 guitars.
No, I agree.
Man,
But they're Jimi Hendrix guitars.
Jimmy Page.
I don't. No,
Oh,
no, I said
the
the Jimi
Jimi
Hendrix
Hendrix reissue.
guitars. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, like that. Fender makes a Jimi Hendrix style Stratocaster for only 1,000.
Yeah, I
Fender,
suppose.
the guitar that Jimi Hendrix actually used the most. They only resell a Jimi Hendrix Strat for 1,000, and Gibson's over here like, no, we need to make the most obscure Jimi Hendrix guitars that we know fall into the Gibson banner, and
Well, of
price
course. I
that
mean,
nine
like,
thousand dollars more.
well, because you know
Oh
what,
my
they
god!
did by doing that, and like, what's sad is that what they truly accomplished in that sort of thing is they basically forced collectors to spend a lot of money because they're like, oh, if you're a collector and you want to collect every guitar Jimi Hendrix used, we'll actually make new reissues to make them cheaper for you to hunt. You know, you won't have to hunt them down. And pay $20,000. You could pay $10,000. Which I
I don't know.
mean,
The only thing that they have accomplished is make me more turned off to the brand than I already was.
yeah. Man, I'm nervous about the whole thing. I brought it up in one of my old episodes, but when Gibson bought out Mesa Boogie, that makes me kind of nervous. But whatever.
Like,
Depends on how hands off they stay. But I'm gonna go over. So I read you the first record, so side A and B. I'm gonna go to the other vinyl and go to side C and side D and read the other ones off of there.
I can't understand how Fender is selling a Jimi Hendrix looking and specced out Strat for 1,000, but Gibson is selling an SG and a Flying V for 10,000 when he didn't even really use them as often as he did a Strat. The business practice is so disgusting, especially for his name too. Like they're only selling it at that price because of his name, you know.
Oh, exactly, for sure.
So it's really disgusting to me because like they're only selling it for his name, no other reason. I doubt that this specific Gibson SG or Flying V is different from an average one that you can get, or
Oh,
like
no
a
way.
high end
Not a
average one.
chance. Not a chance.
But they're
Maybe
adding
maybe
because
they
even if you
hand wound
spend
the
like
pickups or something, but that's it.
like maybe you could spend a very high end custom built guitar from Gibson like that's $2,500 maybe, let's say that's an
Hmm.
SG, and I doubt that there's much difference between that and the Jimi Hendrix one, but they're just selling it for unfair amount of money for like just for his legacy. Like that's so shitty to do.
Yeah. All right. So looking at side three, side C, if you will, we have Foxy Lady.
Back to the music now.
Hmm. Foxy
Great
Lady,
song.
Bold as Love, Castles Made of Sand,
Mm,
Red House,
okay,
Voodoo Child, which we talked about, and then
Red
side
House.
D, or side four, is Freedom, Nightbird Flying, Angel, Dolly Dagger, and Star
Okay.
Spangled Banner.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
that Star
Okay. I was
Spangled
gonna
Banner,
say.
I also wanted to talk about that. If you guys want to hear just like a nightmare of what on earth is going on of a guitar performance, look up Jimi Hendrix Star Spangled Banner because that was one of the most like just powerful and just downright strange renditions of that you could ever hear. There was just nothing but emotion in that performance.
I forget why he did it that way, but I know there's a reason. I think it was protesting the war, but don't quote me on that.
Well, I mean
I
that's a
think that
safe
that
bet to make. I mean, you got to think of the time frame.
well,
What
yeah,
was going on at that
because
time?
you gotta remember that Jimi Hendrix was a soldier.
I didn't know that.
He was a soldier, and he hated like their practices, and he hated the way that they looked down on people, and he was like, let's just get out of the way. He was also black,
Yeah.
and during that era, so it was like kind of hard for him to align himself with the views. So he
Hmm.
started like trying to get discharged, but they wouldn't let him. So then he said he was gay, and then they were like, okay, well you have to, you can't be a soldier anymore. Um, so that's how he got out of being a soldier because he didn't like how they ran there. So Jimi Hendrix, I believe he said. Now again, this is a belief. I've watched a lot of Jimi Hendrix interviews, so maybe I'm getting this one messed up. But he said that he's not attacking the soldiers when he protests the war or makes anti-war music. He's like protesting the system, not the soldiers.
Yeah, and
So I think that's
I feel like
what happened with this.
that's a common area that no matter how many times it's talked over will stay gray. I don't want to get into politics, but I will say that
Yeah.
when it comes to back then and like talking about like stop the war that kind of thing, music was one of the most powerful forces at that point
Oh,
in
of
time,
course.
and Jimi Hendrix was the
They
most powerful probably movement in that force.
yeah. Well, people say that Jimi Hendrix and so many other artists like shaped Vietnam era America.
Yeah, I mean I certainly believe it. Yeah, I want to see this here. I'm gonna look up the whole lineup here of '69 Woodstock here. So let's see here. I just have like the Woodstock Wikipedia page up. But man, 3 days of peace and music. That's definitely
That's
that's something.
I wouldn't say that's what exactly happened.
No, I don't think so. Oh man. Um okay. Let's see what we got. For I'm trying to see if I can find the artists here. Planning and preparation, selection of the venue, festival, sound lighting, performing artists. Here we go. So there was Richie Havens. I can't pronounce that.
The Rolling Stones was there, right?
Uh,
Tell me if they were there. I
I
believe they
will.
were.
I will. Let's see. We got Bert Summer, Tim Harden, Ravi Shankar, Melanie, just one name, Melanie, Arlo Guthrie, Joan Baez, um, and then that was Friday. Saturday, Quill, Country Joe McDonald, Santana. I didn't know Santana played there.
Oh
John
wow.
Sebastian, Keith Hartley Band, The Incredible String Band, Canned Heat, Mountain. I Oh wow, Mountain. I think I know Mountain. Hold on, let me look that up. Oh yeah, Mountain did do Mississippi Queen, I think. Yeah, that's them. Yeah, so that was Mountain's
Um.
third gig. That's interesting.
Oh wow. That's pretty cool.
That's crazy.
Well,
As a band, their
for a
first
third
gig as a
gig,
band
that's
was
yeah, that's kind.
that's crazy. Grateful Dead, Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Okay, no surprise there.
No,
They're
that's
probably the
pretty cool.
biggest anti-war, anti-Vietnam War
Hmm.
band.
Yeah, it ain't me. The Who was there.
Yeah, fortunate. Okay.
Jefferson Airplane, Joe Cocker and the Grease Band, um, Country Joe and the Fish. 10 years after, The Band, Johnny Winter, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Oh, cool. I only know one song of theirs, but I very much like them. Um, uh, Spinning Wheel, I think, is the name of the song. A very good song. Check it out. Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. An acoustic and electric set were played. Neil Young skipped most of the acoustic set. That's interesting. Paul Butterfield Blues
Okay.
Band, Sha Na Na, and the very last performance, Jimi Hendrix, Gypsy Sun
No
and
Rolling
Rainbows.
Stones.
I didn't know. No Rolling Stones. The big notables that stick out to
I could
me:
have.
Hendrix, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Blood, Sweat and Tears, um, The Who, Creedence Clearwater
Definitely
Revival,
Neil Young.
Mountain. Yeah, Neil Young for sure.
Neil Young.
Santana. I didn't know that. I guess I
But
didn't.
what gets me about like and this is like to get a little bit away from Woodstock, how I like how Jimi Hendrix got on the map though with Are You Experienced?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were from the US when you loaded up that record, the first thing you hear is Purple Haze.
Yeah.
That's your first like if you've never heard him before,
Yep.
that is your intro to Mr. Hendrix.
Yeah, because the
And if
first, I
you're
mean, back then, Spotify, you didn't just pick a song out, you didn't pick the
mhm.
one song you heard on the radio. It was if you bought the record, and then you listened to the record, first track
And
was
if
it's really
you
important.
are any of the our European friends, you got Foxy Lady, which both are if that is your intro to Hendrix, there's no way you don't love Hendrix to this day.
Yeah.
Like if either of those songs are your intro to him.
Wow, this is interesting. I okay. I'm looking at the next after talking about what artists perform there, declined invitations or missed connections. So the Jeff Beck group disbanded prior. And
Okay.
Beck says I deliberately broke up the group before Woodstock. I didn't want it to be preserved.
Okay.
That's interesting. Chicago was originally signed, but they had a contract with concert promoter, somebody, Bill Graham, which allowed him to move their concerts at the Fillmore West. He rescheduled their dates, and it just didn't happen. Wow. The Doors were
Okay.
considered, but canceled at the last
What?
moment. According to
No,
guitarist
I
Robbie
don't. I don't
Krieger,
blame.
they turned it down because they thought that it would be a second class repeat of Monterey Pop Festival and later regretted
Yeah.
that
So,
decision. Yeah. No, they didn't get canceled. They did cancel. The Doors were considered,
well,
but they
yeah, but
worded
we'll see
that
what
funny.
happened. What happened was there was this one show, and it's not clear as to what exactly happened with the Doors, but it seems like Jim Morrison was like talking a whole lot of smack to like the police that were there guarding the thing, and then he like it's not said whether or not it's like official, but apparently he like took off his pants or whatever and exposed himself on stage,
Hmm.
and he was like suffering a public indecency
Gotcha.
charge, and that was like that was like right before they completed LA Woman, so I think maybe that's probably why they said
Yeah, it just
uh
says that the
no.
main reason they canceled was because according to the guitarist, they turned it down because they thought it would be like a secondary repeat of the Monterey Pop Festival and just didn't want to be a part of
Hmm.
it. And then obviously later regretted that. Bob Dylan lived in the town of Woodstock but was never in serious negotiation to appear. Let's see. Free was asked to perform and declined. Um, Here's an interesting one. Led Zeppelin were asked to perform. Their manager, Peter Grant, stated, I said no because at Woodstock we'd have just been another band on the bill. That's an it. Where do you.
That's
That's a tough thing because
yeah.
would it have been different? Would Woodstock have, like, taken. I almost wonder if it would have taken some of the weight off of Hendrix's performance if Zeppelin would have played, especially if they would
You
have
think
played
so?
last instead of that spot because they were big. 69 I think was
Yeah.
after their big. They were big at that point, I believe. Maybe not. Maybe that was before. No. They had released a record by then and they were big and well known. So that's an interesting move there. Let's see here. Moving on, Joni Mitchell was stated to perform but canceled. Um, let's see. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? The Rolling Stones. Here we go. The Rolling Stones were invited.
That's
The Rolling Stones were
okay.
invited but declined because Mick Jagger was in Australia filming Ned Kelly and Keith Richards' girlfriend Anita Pallenberg had just given birth to their son Marlon. Simon and Garfunkel
Oh.
declined the invitation as they were working on their new album.
Imagine them.
And let's see here. Spirit declined. Let's see. Frank Zappa was then with the Mothers of Invention. He said, a lot of mud at Woodstock. We were invited to play there. We turned it down. Okay.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's interesting. I never knew. I never knew all that
Can
as
you
far
imagine
as
if all these bands like agreed and it was just this big
that would have
festival
been
thing with more
crazy.
than
Not to mention the ones who actually played, but to have like
yeah.
Zeppelin and the Stones and like all these that would have been crazy. Absolutely crazy. But I feel
We can
like
only dream.
things kind of happened the way they did for a reason, I would say, because I feel like the
Well,
the
for sure.
bigger Woodstock. I mean, I feel like Woodstock '69. From obviously, I wasn't there. I don't know, um, but at the same time, it was one of those things where I feel like it was just big enough to make Hendrix's like closing performance such a big deal, but it was also not so big that it was like. Um, it wasn't so big that, he got drowned out,
Yeah,
which was, obviously it wasn't done on purpose that way, but, I almost wonder if things were, you know, just kind of how things turned out, if they would have had all those people there, if that would have changed some of the impact it had, you know?
that would have been crazy.
Yeah, what a
Because there were some
concert.
pretty big names there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's insane.
Pretty
Especially
big
Zeppelin
names.
pops out
Zeppelin,
and
the
slaps me in the
Stones.
face. Yeah, that's
Damn.
absolutely crazy.
Their reasoning for not wanting to go is
Yeah, like it
pretty
makes sense in certain cases and makes no sense
it's
in
a
other
bit
cases. But
yeah, I was gonna say it's pretty like what is it? Ego stricken, I guess.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
They're
Like you could tell, like, oh, it's like Zeppelin, especially what the well, granted, it wasn't Zeppelin's decision; it was the manager decision, who just said, well, we wouldn't be the headliners there, basically saying we'd just be another band on the bill, which, I mean, kind of at that point, I think, because I don't know. Let me look at Zeppelin's stuff again. Let's see when they dropped the first record. Led Zeppelin 1 was, yeah,
see,
okay,
that's
that
what
was the
makes me
same year, 1969.
that's what oh, so that probably would have given them some good exposure
Hmm.
overall.
Yeah, well, it's not like they needed it.
Um, well, no, for sure.
I mean,
Um, but see, this is what's funny about like this podcast as a whole, like for us, is that even if we decided to get some topic points and we planned like for a week for this,
mhm.
we'd still have to look stuff up because we just go on so many different like
Yeah, these tangents
we
are
go on so many different
pretty,
tangents.
they go pretty out there. Yeah, I will say, I try to like come into this podcast with an idea, but I don't. I like to be able to look stuff up and figure things out, as you go, because I feel like that's
Yeah,
part of the fun is, have a question, look it up,
learning new.
share it with
Yeah,
everybody, share it with you, and share it with myself, figure out, all this cool factual stuff. Yeah, I mean, I definitely have. Looking at man, I can't get my eyes off the like, we have, like, for you guys watching, you can see one of the greatest legends in guitar history, and my eyes are glued to the amps in the bottom left corner, those plexis. Just been thinking about them. Anytime I've been looking at the screen you guys are looking at, Zane, you'll see what I'm talking about when the episode goes up. But
I'm glad that I now know that fucking Jimi Hendrix had a flying V. I did not know that until this podcast.
yeah, and we once again discovered that in another way, Gibson is not a good company. That'll I don't think that'll ever
It's
cease.
a little unfortunate.
Hmm. I mean, I don't know. We could do an entire podcast episode about how much we don't like Gibson after the tangent that we went off.
So far, how I've been looking at guitar companies because I'm so pretty new. I don't mind Fender.
Yeah, I haven't
Like
had a
they don't
whole lot
seem
of
to be
reason to
like
dislike Fender.
super egregious. I mean, like you can get a Jimmy Page, branded Telecaster for the same price as you would get a normal, like professional Telecaster. So it's like
Yep.
they're not overpricing their stuff like Gibson with $10,000 for an obscure Jimi Hendrix guitar.
Yeah. Oh wow, that was, I don't know what my voice did there. Somebody clip that and do something with it. Goodness. I have no idea what that was. That was crazy. Yeah. But anyway. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, let me just say, I mean, Jimi Hendrix, I mean, in closing, we got about 5 minutes left to wrap up here, but I mean,
Okay.
what else do you say? I mean, besides he was revolutionary and gone too soon and an incredible musician.
Anything anything you listen to nowadays is rock or has any roots in guitar playing, you have to give credit to Mr. Hendrix.
I'd agree with that.
He like it's kind of like one of those things where even if like you're the biggest death metal fan and like you would never listen to some like classic bluesy rock, that's totally fine. And like you can even hate Jimi Hendrix's music or think he's not the best or whatever. Like
I never thought
you
I'd hear you
feel
say that.
well, no, like you could think that about him, but you cannot deny what he did to the guitar and
True.
the influence he had.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those situations where the electric guitar was not. At least I don't feel like at that point the electric guitar was such a main staple instrument. I mean, it was because like the Who and that was around Pete Townsend and all that. But at the same time, like Jimi Hendrix is. I mean, he's one of the first people who made the guitar more than an instrument. He made it an extension of himself, and he made it a performing tool. I guess it's hard to explain what I'm trying to get at, but I mean, it
And
was.
you could see it, and you could see his influence in so many things. Like look at early Stone stuff, and then look at the stuff that they started releasing in their later years when Jimi Hendrix was big. Like you could just hear even existing bands altered some of their sound because of Jimmy, or like you can reasonably assume Jimmy pushed them in that direction.
Yeah.
And it's just it's amazing what he was able to.
Yep, I'd have to agree with you there. Man, I can't believe we talked for a whole hour already. And also the fact that we didn't even cover like the triad stuff that he did or like any kind of his actual technical guitar playing. Just such a big topic, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We could always do a Jimmy part two if you ever want to get
Yeah.
into nitty gritty.
Well, granted, you know what? We'll probably get to it in another topic, knowing how we are. We always seem to,
Yeah,
we seem to
yeah. We'll
float.
talk about
We seem to be able to
it
float when it comes to topics. But
next. Yeah, next podcast when we're talking about our favorite flowers. Motley Crue will be there.
yeah,
The triads will come back.
insert Motley. We're gonna. Oh goodness, that's the best.
It's all right. It'll all be there. Our favorite food, our favorite dinner. Molly's gonna be there. The triads will make its
We'll have dinner with
appearance
Nick.
there. We can, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, in closing, thank you guys so much. If you made it this far, subscribe,
It's
leave a
been a
like,
joy.
leave a comment, all that good stuff. Thank you guys. I have been Colton. This has been Zane. And we will see you
Hello
guys
and
in.
goodbye.
Yes. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks for the next podcast. Love you all. Thanks for the support. See ya.
Peace out.